that we are going to be looking at is called change or asset management. Change management is coming after. So we're going to be looking at asset management. When we talk about asset management, we're saying asset management is the process of keeping track of and taking care of IT equipment, like their computers, their software, the network devices, and cloud services, right? It helps keep everything secure, organized, and running smoothly while reducing risk like data breaches, unauthorized access, and extra costs. So, in the asset management, you're keeping track, you're taking care of what needs to be repaired, what needs to be maintained. You are doing it, right? So that's what. And sometimes there are persons within an organization that is given the responsibility of asset management, and they have to make sure they are keeping track, right? So let's do it again. Asset management is the process of keeping track of and taking care of IT equipment like computers, software, network devices, and cloud services. It helps keep everything secure, and it keeps everything organized when you are managing everything. So to do that in the asset management, we need asset identification. What do we have at hand? Tracking and monitoring. Where are the devices in the organization? Where are the assets, right? You got to monitor them. You have to maintain that maintenance and repair. What needs to be repaired? What it is that we need to maintain and then we have to, in the asset management, how do we dispose, retirement and disposal. This is all um this is all included in the asset management. Identification, your entire inventory, your asset, what do you have, what you don't have, right? What needs to be maintained, what needs to be disposed of. We are doing tracking and monitoring of these devices, and we're doing maintenance and repair. Okay, so let's look at some key components of asset management. Asset inventory, right? Well, if you're going to do asset management, you have to know that you have to do asset inventory. Maintain a centralized record of all IT assets, including ownership, location, and status. We have to maintain this because we need to know where they are, right? Life cycle management, tracking the assets from the time you buy them, right, to disposal, ensuring timely upgrades and replacement. So we have to do a life cycle management. How long is this here? Are there any patch? Or is this a vulnerability problem in this particular asset? We have to keep life cycle management, tracking assets from the day you buy to the day you dispose of it. Software licensing management, monitoring software usage and compliance, right? With licensing agreement to avoid legal and financial risk. Okay? Security and compliance. These are key components of asset management, ensuring that all assets adhere to industrial regulation, right? Best practice for asset management: implement automated asset discovery tool to track device and software in real time. Categorize assets based on risk level, critical, and usage. Enforcing policies to assess usage, access control, and maintenance. Conduct regulatory audit. You conduct a regular audit, right, to identify unauthorized or outdated assets, right? You need to do all of that. Integrate asset management with cybersecurity tool to detect and mitigate threats. So let's look at some scenario in this situation. An IT team uses a I an IT team uses an IT tool to track ITM tool rather. So the IT team uses an ITM tool to track all companies' issues laptops and ensure they receive necessary security patch. A company monitors software usage to prevent overpatching, overpurchasing license, and reduce costs. These are just scenarios. A financial firm implements an automated alert to detect unpatched device that poses security problems. A retail chain reallocation um, of underutilized device instead of purchasing new hardware, optimizing expense. So the retail store can reallocate the underutilized device instead of purchasing a new one. They can use one that are underused. Hospital ensuring compliance by tracking all medical device connected to the network. All of these are asset management, right? Reducing cost, minimizing costs, use it wherever, if they are underused, unutilized, and we could use them. So let's look at effective asset management helps organization maintain security, optimize costs, because if you have a device like this one that is underutilized, instead of purchasing new hardware, we could optimize it, right? So in this case, an effective management will help the organization maintain security, and it optimizes costs and ensuring operational efficiency while complying with industrial regulation. So that was an example. So let's move into other scenarios for asset management. Unauthorized device on the network. That's scenario one. The issue: an IT audit revealed a laptop connected to the corporate network that is not listed in the asset inventory. That's a bad thing. If it is not listed in the asset inventory, it should not be connected to the corporation network. The solution to this is that you can implement an automated asset discovery tools that detect and log all connected devices, ensure network access control to block unauthorized devices. I mean, no one can just come, put their device on the network, and think that's how it works, right? That's not how it works. Scenario two, we could look at, it said outdated software posing security risk. A company's accounting department is using an outdated financial software, making it vulnerable to cyber attack. So the company's accounting department is using an outdated financial software, making it vulnerable to cyber attack. And I'm sure this is what the malicious attackers would want, because this is money, right? So the solution that we can implement for this is regulate, update and patch software using an automated asset management system that flags outdated version. So we could implement a update patch software using an automated asset management system that will flag the outdated version, right? Let's look at another one, an unsecure software license increasing cost. The issue is a company purchased 500 software license, but only 300 are actively used. The solution is implement a software asset management tools to monitor license usage and relocate unused license to prevent overspending, right? Management of asset. So instead of going, you buy 3 or 500 and you only need 300 because some is not being used. So if you don't have a proper asset management, what you're going to find out that's happening is that you are buying and investing and creating more expense for the company, right? So you need a way to prevent all of that. Let's look at Another scenario, employee leaves without returning laptops, right? The employee leave without returning the laptop. The issue is an employee resigned but failed to return their company issues laptop which contains sensitive data. What you're going to do? We talked about it earlier. We're going to enforce offboarding process that include asset retrieval and remote wiping of um, unreturned device. So we have the system. You must have the system offboarding that if the client if the worker rather refuse to return the asset that the organization give them, you can remotely wipe it. You can lock it down. It don't have any use for them anymore, right? So you can use those methods because you do have employees at times. There are times that you will have employees in your organization that leaves the organization and don't want to return the assets you gave to them. So you have to have a system and procedures in place that will wipe the device, lock down the device, so they cannot get any access to anything. Another scenario, the IT department cannot locate a retired equipment. They don't know where it is. Issue, a business decommissioning old server but later finds they were never physically removed or sanitized. They were not moved. They thought so. Bad inventory, bad asset management. So one of the things that they could do to solve the problem is maintaining a disposal tracking log, verified assets, decommissioning without certificate with a certificate of destruction. So they thought, or they say that they did dispose of it, of the server, but they find out they were never physically removed or sanitized, right? So to get rid of that discrepancy, we must implement a system that tracks and verify that the asset was disposed of and that there are certificates that you can prove that it was disposed of. Sorry guys, over this side is very very cold. So let's look at another scenario. Because what a confusion that is if you think that you would sanitize and you do a decommission and then it never happened. Let's look at another data breach due to untracked USB device. The issue, an employee used a personal USB drives to transfer work files, leading to data leak. Okay, so they must have some permissions to be transferring the files to the USB from the workplace. The solution implement an endpoint security policy that restrict the use of unauthorized USB device because your personal USB drive should not be using on a company's system. So what the organization have to do, they will have to implement an endpoint security restricting any transferring of information to any personal devices. Because you can't just come with a USB and put in information on it. So as IT personnel, you have to ensure that these rules are enforced because employee will do whatever they want to do if there is nothing in place that will stop them. Okay? So you have to ensure that these policies are in place. Let's look at another scenario, the shadow IT risk due to unapproved software. The issue is employee install unauthorized cloud applications, exposing the company to security risks. So they come and they install their own unauthorized cloud applications. So one of the solutions to this is use asset management tools to monitor software installation and enforce whitelisting policy. Restrict them, right? So they just don't come and downloading and do whatever they feel like. Another scenario is server failure due to mismaintenance. You miss the maintenance, it causes the server to fail. Good asset management, maintaining of the asset, identify them, maintain them, tell how they are disposed of. So the issue, a critical server crash because it was not monitored for performance and required updates. That's a disaster. The server crash. Solution, implement a proactive asset monitoring and schedule regular maintenance to prevent failure. So we're going to do, we're going to do our schedule. And once those are scheduled, then you're in a better position. So let's look at some multiple choices that will help us. What is the primary goal of IT asset management? Why are we doing asset management? Is it A, to increase the number of IT assets in the operation organization? B, to ensure IT assets are properly tracked, secure, optimized throughout their life cycle. D, C, to prevent employees from using technology. D, to allow anyone in the organization to install and use any software they prefer. And one of the reasons we're doing asset management is to ensure that IT assets are properly tracked, secure, optimized throughout their life cycle. What is the best way to track company-owned IT asset? You have an asset from the company, it's not yours. What is the best? How can we track those? A, manually update the spreadsheet every month. B, using automated IT asset management system. C, allowing employee to report their device voluntarily. And D, only track higher cost device. So the best way to do it is to use the automated IT asset management system to track those. Next question, what is the primary purpose of IT asset management? What is the purpose? Oh, we repeat this question, so let's jump from there. Now, the next question, which of the following is a key component of asset management? Which of the following is a key component of asset management? A, ignoring the hardware depreciation. B, tracking and monitoring IT assets from acquisition to disposal. C, allowing employees to bring their own software without oversight. D, dispose of IT asset without documenting the process. And we would use B for the answers, tracking and monitoring the IC assets from the day you buy them to the day you dispose of them. Next question, what is the best way to prevent unauthorized device from accessing a company network? What can you do to prevent unauthorized device from accessing the company's network? A, allowing the employees to use personal device freely. B, implementing network access control and asset inventory management. C, conducting manual checks on connected devices. D, only using physical security measure. And we use B for the answer, implementing network access control and asset inventory management. Next question, Which of the following helps organization to track software license and prevent overspending? A. Ignoring software installation usage. B. Using software asset management tools. C. Allowing employees to install any software they choose. D. Purchasing an extra software license without tracking the usage. And we're going to use B, using software asset management. Why is asset lifecycle management important? Why is it important? A. It ensures IT assets are properly acquired, maintained, and retired securely. B. It increases the cost of IT assets. C. It allows employees to keep old device indefinitely. D. It prevents IT teams from tracking company-owned device. And A. It ensures that the assets are properly acquired, maintained, and retired securely. Next question. An IT audit revealed that several unauthorized applications are installed on a company device. What should the IT team do? A. Remove the applications, and implement software whitelisting policy. B. Ignore the issues and assume employee needs the software. C. Allowing employee to continue installing unapproved software. D. Disable security updates to accommodate the software. So one of the things that we're going to do, we're going to remove the application and we're going to implement a software whitelisting policy. What is the most effective ways to track IT asset in a real time? How can you track the asset? A. Conducting an inventory check once a year. B. Using automated asset discovery and tracking tool. C. Relying on employee for self-report their device. D. Keep a written log of purchase device. So we want to use automated system to assess to this to assess the discovery and tracking. We're not going to rely on anything else. Next question. A company wants to dispose of outdated laptops securely. So a company wants to dispose of outdated laptops securely. What is the best way to follow? A. Sell them without wiping data. B. Performing a factory reset and donate them to charity. C. Use data sanitization method like secure or physical destruction. D. Throw them in the trash without further action. And we're going to do C for the answer. Next question. Which of the following is an example of shadow IT? And we will say, just go to B and said employee using unapproved software and application without IT knowledge. And these can be very dangerous. Now we're going to move on to the next, which is change management. So we're going to look at change management. And change management is the structure and approach to managing modification in the IT environment while minimizing risk and ensuring operational continuity. So in the change management process, when you are going to do any form of changes within the IT department, whether it's going to be the implementation of a new device, whether it's going to be any changes concerning the organization, it goes through a process. There's a structural process that must be followed if you're going to modify anything, if you're going to change anything, and um, this prevents risk and also allow the organization to operate effectively. So in the change management, you have the planning, you define the goal, you identify the stakeholders, assessing potential impact are crucial for effective change and management. So what impact is this going to have when you make the changes? You have to have communication, keeping all the stakeholders informed through the change management process, ensuring understanding and buying. So when you are planning the change management, whether buying the new equipment, you got to go through the process of why you're buying the equipment. You got to have the stakeholders involved, so you don't have any problem. And then the implementation, which executing the plan changes and managing the risk, monitoring the progress are essential for successful rollout. So when you're going to implement it, you have different ways of trying to implementing it so that it work effectively before you deploy it to the end users. So let's look at the change management process, right? You do a request. You formalizing change requests, ensuring clear communication and documentation. So you have to make a request about the changes you want to make, why you want to make those changes, and those must be communicated clearly. Assessment, after it done, then there got to be an assessment evaluating the impact, the feasibility, the risk of the proposed change, um the risk of the proposed change, which is crucial. What kind of risk is this? What is it a risky thing that we're doing? Then after the assessment is made about the changes, then you have the authorization process, approving the change request, ensuring alignment with the organization goal and priorities. So authorization from the highest level of management that says you put the request in, they assess it, we got to tell what are the risks, what are the feasibility, evaluate what impact this is going to have on the company, what time you're going to implement this, and would it affect our business, would it have some downtime to the business, what is this all about, right? The implementation, implement the approved change with strategic planning, right, and execution. So you minimize disruption. So when you're going to implement it, how long are you going to test this in an environment? What are you going to do to ensure that this change that is approved, that it's not going to affect the business continuity, right? So some of the key components in change management is risk assessment. We talk about that. Evaluating the potential security risk and business impact that the change is going to have. Change approval process. We're using change advisory board to approve the major changes. We just don't, in the IT department, we're just not coming up with an idea that we need next generation firewall. We need to change out all the firewall. We need a better web application, web the secure web protocol. We need a better one, and we're not just going about to change it, but the change approval, it has to go through the change approval process, right? Rollback plan, the rollback plan ensuring continuity. If the plan that is proposed doesn't work, what are we going to roll back to, right? So it ensures continuity, that if in case that next generation firewall fails, what are we going to do? If we use a power source and that power source fail, how are we going to roll back? Rollback plan is, if it fails, how do we go back to what we had before? So the rollback plan is, if you fail, what are you going to go back? What are you going to look to? What is your backout plan? So let's look at an example. A company upgrading its firewall policy must assess how changes affect the network security, conduct a test in a sandbox environment, and seek approval from the um, change advisory board before deployment. Just don't deploy anything in the organization. And then we have to look at the technical implication of changes, right? What are the technical implication of those changes? Compatibility. So we have to look at the technical implication of those changes that we're making. Compatibility, ensuring new system and technology are compatible with an existing infrastructure, is essential. Remember, we said that earlier on, that they bought a piece of equipment and it was not compatible um, to the server, right? So we have to make sure that whatever changes that we are making, that it has some compatibility. Performance. Monitoring the system performance before, during, and after changes is necessary to optimize functionality. So we are not making changes and we deploy them, but we are monitoring them, closely monitoring them during and after to see if they are functioning, um, they are functioning the way we desire them to be. Security, implementing security measures to protect the data and system during and after the changes. So while we are changing and doing that, we have to make sure that our existing data is preserved, it's protected, it's encrypted, so that there is no data breach. So some technical implications of changes, the technical implications of changes, any IT changes can have a technical consequence requiring careful analysis, right? So consideration, network impact, the bandwidth, the firewall, the security settings, system, you have to take those in consideration, the network impact, system compatibility, ensuring hardware and software are compatible to what is there. Security vulnerability. You're assessing the risk of misconfiguration or new attack vector. So assessing the risk of misconfiguration. If you have to reconfigure all the system security vulnerability, right? So you have to factor that in. Sometimes in the technical department, this can be a problem, right? Misconfiguration, right, of the new approved device or that you want to use. Compliance issue, you're ensuring that regulation requirements are met, right? So let's look at an example. A software patch introduced for a security fix is inadvertently causing performance issue requiring a rollback going back to what you had before. And another thing that you want to do after you have made the changes, documenting the changes. Remember, we talk about that? We have to document all of the changes that we are making. So, change requests, detailed documentation of the change request, and provide clear record of the needs for change. We're going to document that, implement the plan. So, after the comprehensive plan outlines steps, timeline, and resource for implementing the changes, right? Then we have a change log. So tracking all changes, including date and time, details, ensuring accountability and auditability. So we have to do all of it. Request the change, implement the change, and we have to log the change. When the change was made, what kind of change was made, who made the change. We have to document all of that. So defining change requests. So we said the problem statement. We went through that earlier. Clearly articulate the problem, why the change need to be made. We have to look at impact analysis and assessing the potential impact of those change on various stakeholder and system. What is the impact going to have on stakeholder? What are we have to make sure that we take those in consideration. Timeline and resource. Defining the timeline. When is this going to finish? What resource do we need to do this? And the solution outline the proposed change and how they will address the issue. What issue we have at hand? How is it going to solve that? Approving change request, authorization level, establish a clear approval level based on the scope and impact of the change. Then we're going to look at risk assessment, thoroughly assessing and mitigating plans to ensure minimal disruption to operations. So we have to have a plan, a risk assessment plan to say that we're going to do a risk assessment and mitigation plan to ensure minimal disruption to operation. Then involve the stakeholders, all the people that are part of it. And then after we do that, we're going to implement the change. Then we're going to validate the change. So what we say we're going to do, we're going to do it, and we're going to validate the changes. Functional testing, verify the implemented change meet the intended requirements. So we're going to test it in an environment, and we're going to ensure that it is working according to how we want it. And then we're going to use our user acceptance testing, gaining approval from end users. So we're going to run the product out there. We're going to let you test it to ensure that the changes meet their needs and expectation. So if you wanted a firewall with certain features and we come up with that, we're going to test it. Okay, then we're going to monitor the changes. Performance monitoring, tracking key performance indicators, to assess the impact of the change on the system performance. So not only have we made the change, but we're going to monitor the performance, and we're going to have security monitoring, right? Continual monitoring the system's security to identify potential vulnerability and address them promptly. So we want to make sure that we are addressing. Then we want the user's feedback, right? So we want to gather and analyze the user's feedback to identify area of improvement, and that's what a lot of companies doing, right? A lot of company is doing that. Um, right? So those information, those other information on the slide, they are just additional information that I provided you with. Because in all of this, the business want you want to make sure that the business is in all compliance. Okay, so that is it for today's lesson. Have a great day. And if you have any question, you can always reach out. Change management, asset management is all a part of organization. And we have to make sure that these changes are done appropriately, and that when the changes are done, that they are effective. Oh, child.